Hi, I'm Noah. Today I'm going to talk about the monetary system in the United States. And I know you guys probably don't really understand much about it, but it actually affects everyone. Because after all, it's where you get your money from. Everyone likes a paycheck. So, what I'm going to start with is by saying that you can trace the monetary system back to politicians. So it's all going to start with them promise you things, free things. Like, I'm gonna give you more things than my opponent will. Vote for me. They get elected. You vote for them. And they get into office. In order to pay for these things, they need money. How do they get money? We're going to look at that. So, it's going to start off by they're going to ask the Treasury. And this is the United States Treasury. This is where you believe that, your paper currency comes from. And this is how it all works. I'm going to break it down. The Treasury, the politicians ask, we need currency in order to pay for this stuff. We need to do deficit spending. In order to do deficit spending, the Treasury needs to get cash. In order to get cash, they have to issue a bond. A bond is a glorified IOU. It's saying, let me borrow $10 trillion today, and over a 10-year period, I'll pay you that $10 trillion back plus interest. And that's how it's going to work. So you have these private banks who are here, and they're going to be the middlemen. So the Treasury issues the bond, and then they have a bond auction. These Treasury bonds, these are our national debt. This is what our debt is. So the 17 trillion, 22, whatever, it's just a bunch of numbers. That's what it is. So the banks are going to buy part of our national debt at a profit. So they buy the bonds, and they give the Treasury the currency. And then what happens is the Federal Reserve over here is then going to write a check. That check that the Federal Reserve has is drawn on an account with nothing in it. So the IOU is then going to be taken over to the Federal Reserve. They just swap. And the private bank then has the check. And then watch what happens. That check turns into money out of thin air. And the private banks take a cut out of it. This happens over and over and over again, and what you see is all you did was just swap IOUs. All you did was swap bonds. So you have an influx of money here, an influx of currency, and the private banks taking a cut every step. To quote, Boston Federal Reserve, when you or I write a check, there must be sufficient funds in our account to cover the check. But when the Federal Reserve writes a check, that blank check with that $0 in the balance, there is no bank deposit on which that check is drawn. When the Federal Reserve writes a check, it is creating money. That's from the Boston Federal Reserve. Currency from the Treasury is then put into different branches of the government. And the government does deficit spending on public works, social programs, and war. Government employees, such as military people, people that work for the government, USDA, all these programs, they will then take that money and put it into a private bank, right? You take your paycheck and you put it in the bank. From the private bank, there are several things that can happen. Private banks can gamble in the stock market and loan out your money at a profit. Let's say you go into a bank and you deposit $100. You're a government employee, you deposit $100. I'm going to take this on a 10% ratio. There could be other ratios, but I'm just going to do 10%. Taking $100, and what they're going to do is they're going to take 10 of those dollars and put it as something that's called bulk cash. And it's going to stay there. And they're going to take out $90 and they're going to loan it out. But your account still says that you have $100 in it. How? It's because they use bank credit. Bank credit is just a bunch of numbers that are typed into a computer just in case you want that extra money. So you loan out the money to go buy a car or a house or something like that. The person who receives that money then puts it in their bank account. The same thing happens. All of a sudden, $100 that was the base currency, then all of a sudden turned into $270. So that first process that I showed you that had to do with the paper currency with the Treasury and the Federal Reserve, that's where only 5% of the United States currency comes from. And that's only paper currency. 95% of the currency that's in existence starts at the bank. And that is how. It multiplies the numbers. To quote from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, commercial banks create checkbook money whenever they grant a loan, simply by adding new deposit dollars and accounts on their books in exchange for borrower's IOU. That's where they just type it into an account. It doesn't exist. It's numbers that are made up in a computer. That's our entire economic system. So what happens, that sounds really cool, right? Having a bunch of money just going out, you know? That sounds nice, like you're swimming in money. But it's not. The more currency that you end up having, the more the prices are going up. Inflation is just a symptom. What's even more cruel about it is that we work for that currency. Those fake numbers typed into a computer is what we work for. That currency that just runs around, it has no value. But our blood, sweat, tears, ideas, talents, all of that, that's what gives the money its value. We do. And what's even worse about it is that we end up getting taxed on those fake numbers. So what ends up happening is, this is where you really got to pay attention. Our taxes go to the IRS. Then they go to the Treasury so it can pay off the principal, plus interest on that bond that the Federal Reserve bought with a check, withdrawn from an account with nothing in it. There's nothing in it. That's where you get robbed. I mean, this isn't a joke. I mean, this is quoted. This is. I mean, government documents I've already shown you from, you know, the Boston Federal Reserve. I mean, people don't understand this. Government makes it seem like it's so complex that you can't understand it, but you're getting taxed for nothing. This is me talking about the debt ceiling now. You see how you say piling up rocks, comedy, haha. So I'm going to talk about the debt ceiling real quick. If people think, you know, we need to raise the debt ceiling, we need to halt the debt ceiling or pay it off and stuff like that, I'm going to tell you that both are farcical. I'm not trying to persuade anyone, I'm just providing facts and you can make up your mind. Debt ceiling is a big deal because people refuse to understand it. You can't raise it and you can't buy it off. There's an interest due on every single dollar in existence. Let's say I need $1. How am I gonna get that dollar? I gotta borrow it. So I borrow that dollar and promise I'll pay it back with another $1. So all of a sudden, there's $1 and I owe 2 debts on it. Okay, well how am I supposed to pay that debt off? I need to borrow another $1. I borrow that $1, now there's 2 more debts. How am I gonna pay that off? Borrow another $1. Now there's 2 more debts. Keeps going on and on and on. And I'm gonna keep raising the ceiling. Eventually it's gonna collapse. It's not, you're not gonna be able to do anything with it. But you say, hey, let's spend money to stop the debt ceiling. Let's pay off our debt. Okay, sure. Let's try it. Where's all the cash at? Where are we supposed to? Where are we gonna get our money from? You're not gonna get it. You know why? Because it's like matter and antimatter. If you spend the money, it's gonna destroy the money and it's gonna destroy the debt. But then you have leftover debt from borrowing. The system is farcical. It's not gonna work. You know, honestly, I have no solution for it. The government doesn't have any solution for it. The only thing that we can do is, you know, hope that one day we'll have a politician that will realize the side effects and the causes for it. Thank you.